I was Happy Hot Point in a series of commercials for the Ozzie and Harriet television show. Happy would ice skate on the ice cube trays and talk to Harriet. Hi, Harriet, aren't you glad you use Hot Point appliances? And that was a tremendous step forward for me because that was truly a professional job. The first regular role was that of Sam, a rather sexy voiced creature who was the answering service woman for Richard Diamond, the detective. And I was never fully seen. You would see a close-up of my mouth or a shot of my legs, but there was this voice. There was this, "Hi, Mr. D. I have some messages for you." I left that show, and what was great about it was that I was now able to reveal, ta-da, Mary Tyler what? Who? But she was Sam. I got a call from my agent who said that the people at the Danny Thomas office wanted to see me about playing a role in the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's a nice guy, I think I'm a nice lady, and we just liked each other right from the beginning. There was just right away a sense of being very happy, very safe in the talent that he shared with me, and very comfortable in humor that we shared, and an appreciation for each other's gifts. Early on, Carl saw some spark of humor in me, and he wrote a script called My Blonde-Haired Brunette. And that was an episode where Laura, after having felt that Rob was no longer attracted to her, decided while he was at work she was going to bleach her hair blonde, and did it, and it looked horrible. She looked like Harpo Marx, and he wants to know why, what happened. And then I try to tell him in a funny kind of crying way what happened. And it was just because you in the morning you said that I am, and then the yucky and the eggs that spilled, and then you didn't love me, and I didn't. And it was very funny, and that proved that I could handle comedy. There were some O-Robs that were definitely written in, but I don't think any of us knew how they would grow. I mean, literally swell in different directions. That one would be "Oh, Rob," or then the next one would be "Oh, Rob," and then the classic one, "Oh, Rob." Lucille Ball was our landlady at that point. She owned Desilu, and I will never forget. One day she sort of walked out of the studio and then came back and came up to me and she said, "You're very good," and then walked on. And that was the greatest gift I ever received. I did Thoroughly Modern Millie with Julie Andrews and Carol Channing and B. Lilly, and then I went to Broadway to do what became the ill-fated Breakfast at Tiffany's. I had just done a special with Dick Van Dyke called Dick Van Dyke and the Other Woman, and it was very successful, and CBS noted how successful it was and how comfortable I seemed being in the spotlight, and they asked me if I wanted to do my own show. They wanted me to do a situation comedy, and so Grant Tinker then thought that it would probably be wise to form a company that he could manage and that I could use as the foundation for the pilot. The little kitten at the end was a lot of people's ideas. We were all sitting around in a room one day and somebody said, "Boy, MTM sounds like MGM, doesn't it?" And then somebody else said, "Yeah, how about that lion?" "Oh, I know, how about a little orange cat?" And that's how it came to be. They said, "Well, we're thinking maybe she works in a small television station and that she's looking to be married, but she's not desperate about it." And I said, "That sounds good too. I like that because that's kind of progressive." Then they said, "And we think she's probably coming off a divorce." And as soon as CBS heard that, they hit the ceiling. They said, "You can't have Mary divorced from somebody. Even if she does have a different last name, they're going to think she divorced Dick Van Dyke." It really was a spur-of-the-moment idea. We were out there in the middle of February in Minneapolis, freezing. They just wanted shots of me in action. And I was in front of a department store, and they said, "Oh, look, here, run out into that intersection and take your hat," which I had in my hand, "and throw it up in the air as though this is the happiest moment of your life." And I did, and that was it. Ted Baxter, in their minds, was supposed to be tall, dark, and handsome, and a love interest for Mary. And then they saw Ted Knight, and with all his pomposity and his bluster, they decided to just leap at the opportunity that Ted offered them. Rhoda was supposed to be kind of non-glamorous. She was supposed to be kind of dowdy and schlubby, I think is the word that they used. It was a tricky character because she had to be abrasive and tough and hard-edged, but she had to be lovable. And Valerie came in and was her. The character of Murray was supposed to have been my nemesis. And then Gavin came in and was just so warm and embracing and dear that they felt that that was a better thing to write to. And Ed, like me, had not done any real comedy. I think he'd done some plays, some theater somewhere. And then I came in and read with him, and something happened, and he just lost it. It became lugubrious and tedious. And, So as he was getting up and backing toward the door and saying thank you, and we were all saying, "Well, thanks for coming in. It was an interesting reading." He said, "Wait a minute, I'd like to do it again if I could." And everybody said, "Yeah, sure." And he did it, and he was superb. We did a run-through of the script on a Wednesday night for an audience, and we were counting on the reaction to tell us what we had, and they didn't like it. They didn't laugh at anything. I said to Grant, "They've got to fix it. They've got to fix it." They had little Bess, Cloris's, Phyllis's daughter, like Rhoda. They didn't like the fact that Rhoda was mean to Mary. And so they figured out that if a child liked Rhoda, then she wasn't all mean. There was something in her that could be lovable. Essentially, that following Friday, we did the very same show, and it went through the roof. The network put it in one of those electronic rooms with people who press buttons and watch the show and write things on cards. And it tested and still retains this honor as being the lowest ranked television episode ever viewed in the history of CBS. When the show was on the air in first run, people talked about the show and the brilliant performances. But now that it has been seen by people who were young adults then, who are now mature, they are coming to me with tears in their eyes or a lump in the throat saying, "You got me through some really tough moments," or "You're the reason I'm in journalism today." Chuckles the clown had been dressed as a peanut in a parade and had been shelled by a rogue elephant and lost his life. Oddly enough, that's not my favorite episode, but it certainly did me a lot of good. I won an Emmy for that performance, and I think it is everybody's favorite episode. Mary had been thought of as, kind of near perfection. In this show, she woke up and had a cold and came to the office and was discovered that she had a hair bump. Just one of those little things that you get in long hair that just won't lie flat. Then she twists her ankle. And all of this is happening on the day of the night she is to be nominated for a Teddy Award, which was our Emmy Award. The dress she is planning to wear comes back from the cleaner with a stain on it, so she can't wear it. She ends up having to wear Rhoda's dress, which is too big. Her eyelash falls off and lands like a big spider on her cheek. And hears her name called, stands up to the podium, and the first thing out of her mouth is a tearful, "I usually look so much cuter than this." And I'm particularly proud of the show where Mary finds out that the man who had the job before her earned a good deal more money, and she takes Lou to task for this. And he listens to her and agrees with her and says that is terribly unfair. And he says, "But listen, would it make any difference to you if I tell you that that man was married and had 3 children?" And it made a difference to Mary. And I loved that about her. I loved that she didn't take the fight further. The producers and writers wanted to go on to other things. And at the time, it was incumbent on me to profess absolute belief that this was the smart thing to do, to go off while we're ahead and on top. But I was crumbling inside. I didn't want it to end. Again, it was my family. A new owner has come in to take over WJM, and we know that we're going to have to be prepared for some firings, and we're all looking at Ted. And it turns out that he is the only one the new owner keeps. He fires the rest of us. And my favorite moment from that show was the group hug, which came about just spontaneously. But there we were, all embracing each other. And somebody said, "We need a Kleenex." And Georgia Engel's line was, "Well, there's a Kleenex on Mary's desk." And somehow we all just kind of did that little step. In the script, it was written, they break up and they go to the Kleenex, but wasn't that a pot of gold, huh? And coming back into the newsroom, as I do at the very end, to take a last look around and turn off the light, was very meaningful on a couple of levels. There came along ordinary people, which I would not have been able to do had I been still doing the television show. That was such a change of pace, that a woman could be so brittle inside that she could alienate her son. I saw her as a victim. I saw her as very reminiscent of my own life. You know, very few of us are lucky enough to, at the end of our life, know we were here for some purpose, and I am going to be one of those lucky few. I know I served some people very well.